so guys, today we're going to talk about investing, kind of the start to investing. And I've got Zagla and Alex with me, these are two people that we probably haven't heard a lot from, but I'd love to because they both do investing with me. So I'm going to start off by kind of getting on my soapbox for a quick minute, and then I want story time. We're all going to sit down. We're going to tell stories. So on my soapbox, I'm going to kind of go on a little bit of a rant here, and everybody has to listen to me. I'm going to share my screen so we can see what's going on here. And Zagla, can you see my spreadsheet here?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, wonderful. Okay, so I actually, for those of y'all that don't know, I'm sure you heard me say it before, I started life off as a teacher, and I taught for 5 years. And while I was teaching, that's when I got into the Rich Dad thing. If you have not read Rich Dad, Poor Dad, you're a fool. You need to read that book. Stop what you're doing. It'll literally change your brain forever, and it's a great thing. And then I read Rich Dad, Poor Dad. I ended up reading the entire series. I ended up doing all this stuff. And I really wanted to get into real estate investing, but I didn't really have anyone to help me with that. But I wanted to also learn more about money. And so I started studying, and I actually got my Series 6, 63, 26, my health insurance, life insurance. I got all of these different licenses that I actually held for 14 years. I actually had to let them go because I was doing so much real estate investing. I held them for a long time. So I can't say that I'm still licensed. I'm not. I let that go a couple years ago. But I did do it for a long time. So I'm very, very familiar with investing more than the average person. I'll say that. So one of the things I want to talk about is like why. So a lot of people ask me now, like, hey, Colin, do you have a 401k? Do you have a Roth IRA? What about this? Stock, blah, blah. Okay, I don't have any of it. I personally, Colin does not have a Roth IRA, a 401k, any of that stuff. Now I did, and there's nothing wrong with that. Please understand me. There's nothing wrong with that. But when you look at the math and the numbers behind it, I will show you why real estate is without a doubt the greatest option for me. Now, I'm not giving anybody any advice. That is a big thing if you're licensed, which I'm not anymore. I'm not giving advice, guys. I'm just showing why it didn't make sense for me. So first and foremost, for those of you that don't know, the number one thing is compound interest, guys. Compound interest is a huge benefit. It means you make money on top of money. If you have a $100 investment and you have 10% interest, at the end of whatever time frame, you'll have $110. It's pretty simple math. If it's simple interest, let's say it's 1 year. Every year you'll make $10 because you're only making interest on that initial amount. If it's compounding, that means the interest that you made, so we go from 100 the first year to 110, that whole 110 is going to make that next 10%. So the next year you're going to get $11. So you'll have 121, and it slowly grows beyond that. The longer of a timeline you have, the more compound interest can actually help you. It's huge. But it's a very set it and forget it kind of movement. And so one of the things that a lot of people do, they invest in some sort of retirement fund, which is great. Just for everybody's edification, I guess, or just education on this, whenever you hear somebody say numbers followed by a letter, that is usually referring to a tax code. I have a 401k. I can get a 403b FHA loan. I can get whatever the numbers are, guys. Those are lines in the tax code. It's line 403, section B. 401k, that's what that is. Roth IRA, their individual retirement account. So whenever you're utilizing a line in a tax code, that means that those things have certain tax advantages. And that you have to abide by certain rules. Now, for the most part, if you have a 401k or anything like that, the basic rule is you get some sort of tax advantage, but to get that tax advantage, you can't touch this money until a certain time. So each one of them has a different rule, okay? 401ks, for instance, all of that money comes out pre-tax. So if you get paid $10,000 at your job and you put $1,000 away, $9,000 is what you'll get taxed on. So that $1,000 is pre-tax, which is great. It goes into an account, you invest in stocks, bonds, mutual funds, whatever it is, and that account grows. Then you have to wait until you're a certain age. That age changes not every year, but it changes every once in a while. Right now, I think it's 62 and a half, I think is what you have to be. I can't remember. It's been a couple years since I've dealt with it. But then you can pull your money out and then pay taxes on it then. But the whole growth time is tax-free. A Roth IRA is the opposite. You get paid $10,000, you get taxed on $10,000, and then you take $1,000 and put it in, and that's never taxed. Again, not even when you pull it out. So there are certain advantages, which is great. But what I don't like about this is what I want to show you. I was going to show something about compound interest, but I'm going sideways on this. Actually, I will show you this. So let's say that I put in $100,000, and I'll say my initial investment was $10,000, and every month I'm putting away $200 a month, and I do this for 30 years. Okay. They tell you in the stock market a strong estimated rate of return is 12%. Insurance variant range. I'm not going to do that and get into this. So if I do that, guys, if I start with $10,000 and put away $200 a month for 30 years, if I start when I'm 20, by the time I'm 50, I'll have $878,000. That is the great thing about compound interest is as you can see down here in this line, what I've actually contributed at the end of this will be $82,000, but it's worth 10 times more. It's a great thing to do. Now, I should be completely honest. I don't have a 401k, but my wife does. And there's a lot of reasons to that. Her company matches, and we can get into all that stuff later if y'all have questions. But the reason why I like real estate is this number right here. The basic principle of real estate is interesting. My total contributions are $82,000. I had to put in that money. The thing about real estate is I don't have to put in all the money. So if I were to take that initial $10,000 investment that I just put in over there, and let's say I went and bought a house, okay? I buy a house at 10% down. Okay, I get a conventional loan and I put my $10,000 down, but I buy a $100,000 house. Okay, I put is that 100,000? I need commas. Can't tell what I'm doing here. Okay, and I buy a $100,000 house. If this $100,000 house actually continues to grow, I'm going to put in that same thing. Let's say my initial investment was $100,000 because that's the house. I'm not adding anything to it, and I own that house for 30 years, but we're probably not going to get a 12% rate of return. I'd say the average market, what do you think, Alex, 3.5?
Well, 4 to 5 historically in Texas. On forecast chart,
let's say 4.5%.
Texas, right?
All right, I like it. So we're going to say 4.5%. That my house that I bought for $100,000 goes up. So, and I had to put 10,000 in there. Excuse me.
Is it still 30 years?
It's a $100,000 house. I put 30 years, so we're doing the same timeline, 30 years. So my $100,000 house is now worth $374,000. Okay, so I spent my $10,000 differently, and I did not put in an extra $200 a month. I now have $374. Well, Colin, the other one was better. It sure was, but I want to show you something. If you remember, I had to put in $82,000 total on my last scenario. On this scenario, I put in $10,000 and didn't do anything. Okay, I put it in and let it go. And my total value, was $374,531.81%. So what I like to show everybody, my $10,000 turned into $378. Now over that 30 years, I'm going to say I put in a renter. The renter paid down my mortgage. Let's say it's a zero cash flow gain. I just literally bought the house and left it there. What I love to show everybody, and I haven't even tried this math, but I'm positive it'll work out, is that rate of return, what we call a cash on cash return, ended up being a 37, no, wait, I did that backwards, excuse me. I knew that wasn't right.
It's too tiny.
That's still not right. I know it's too tiny, but it's still, the math's not right. If I take $10,000 and I put this rate of return in, I think my rate, I can't even remember what that is.
Well, your cash on cash is going to be infinite.
No, because I still had that $10,000. I didn't bring that out.
Oh,
I just bought it by itself. No, I was right. I did the math right the first time. Excuse me. My cash on cash return, guys, if we represent this, I did that right. Sorry about that. If I represent this as a percentage, it's 3,745% rate of return. That's if I did absolutely nothing, just bought the house, let the renter take care of it. There is nowhere else that you're going to get a 3,000% return. And the reason why it's 3,000% is because I only had to put in 10 grand to get a $100,000 investment. I was able to borrow the other 90. Nobody else will let you ever borrow the other 90. Now, what Alex was hinting to is kind of the same thing that a lot of us investors do, is something called the BRRRR strategy. And I did another video about the BRRRR strategy, but what's nice is if you do the BRRRR strategy correctly, you'll get your money, you'll put $10,000 in, you'll rehab it for a certain amount. And when you refinance the property, you should get all of your money out. So I would have a zero invested and I'd get an infinite rate of return. So that is one of the main reasons why I stopped investing in paper. I just stopped. I was like, this makes way too much sense. You can't find me another 3,000% return now, or an infinite return based on that. I'd have to divide this by 30, actually. If I did 30 years, which is still 124% a year. So I'm getting 124% rate of return per year, whereas the stock market's getting 12. It just makes sense. Now, is it harder? Yes. Real estate investing is way harder than anything else. And because it's active, you got to be paying attention. You got to pay attention to the house. You got to pay attention to what's going on. And guys, this is just simply talking about holding a piece of property for a long time. Same as if you were to buy stock for a long time, or crypto, or whatever the current thing is. They're just not making any more real estate, as Lex Luthor would say. They're just not doing it. And your rate of returns are there. So once I figured that out, I was hell-bent on understanding how I can start buying property, how I can buy these things. Because even if I did this as the most boring flip in the history of the planet, the most boring rental, I was still going to return 124% a year. If I did it correctly, I was going to make an infinite return, meaning that I put zero money in and I own an asset. I just refinanced one of my duplexes the other day. I got all my money out. I put $23,000 in, fixed the whole house up, got $26,000 out. I made a quick $3 grand. I now have a property that I have zero money into. I mean, yes, I still owe money, but my renters are paying off the mortgage for me. In 30 years, it was worth 220. I'm curious now too, actually. It appraised right at 220. Keeps that market, and we do this thing. It'll be worth $842,000 in 30 years, guys. And I have zero money invested into that. So in 30 years, pretty damn close to being a millionaire. Now I have all my money back in my pocket. You can't borrow money to buy stocks. You can't borrow money to buy just about any other investment, but you can for real estate, which is why I like it. So once I figured all this math out, I started getting very interested in real estate, which is where Eric Sanger Housing comes into play. Eric was doing real estate investing kind of by accident, and I don't want to spend this whole time telling the story, but I basically followed him around like a puppy dog, trying to learn what he knew. And I followed him around for years, kind of got to figuring it out. And then I went to go do my very first deal. So what was my very first deal? So what stops most people into getting into real estate is having money. Everybody thinks, oh my God, I'm going to buy a $200,000 house. I need $200,000. And then if the toilet breaks and I'm broke, I can't fix the toilet. Well, that's not entirely correct. And I've decided that I'm going to make a YouTube channel through every single deal I've ever done. I think it'll be a lot of fun because I really want to show the numbers and exactly how this whole thing went down. But the very as an investment was Skyline Drive in Bandera, Texas. Bandera, Texas, about an hour from where I live. And my wife did not want me to do this. She's like, that is a long drive. I don't know how I'm going to do it. So it was a 2-bedroom, 1-bath house that might have been 600 square feet. There was an elderly couple whose son decided they needed to go to long-term care, and he didn't want to clean out the house. And the way I found this house is Eric used to have another partner in business named Mike. Mike actually was presented this deal. Mike's like, I don't want to deal with it. Colin, do you want to go look at it? I said, I'd love to look at that. So I drive out there and I take a look at it. Tiny, tiny little farmhouse. Oh, I have a picture of it somewhere. I'll have to find it. But they wanted $13,000. That's all they wanted for that house. And it's way out in the middle of nowhere. So I didn't have $13,000 in cash. So what I actually did is I went and borrowed the money from my 401k at the time. I did work for a company. I did have a 401k because they would match. I always tell everybody, if your company will match your 401k, just put it in there. It's stupid not to do that. If you told somebody, hey, I'll give you $1 and I'll give you back 2, how many times would you do that? Every time you could, right? That's the dumbest transaction ever. So I did have money in my 401k, but I pulled it out to go buy this house for $13,000. They left all the stuff there. I paid a guy $1,000 to go clean all that crap out and take it to a dump. He did it for me. It was great. And then I had this vacant house. Didn't really know what to do with it. I wasn't licensed at the time. I had no clue. So what I actually did with my first one was I owner financed it to somebody. I owner financed it to a guy. Oh man, I don't want to lie to y'all. I want to say I owner financed it for $35,000, and I think I asked him for $10 down. So he gave me $10,000 down, and I did a note for $25,000. So for those of y'all keeping track, I put 14 grand in. I got 10 grand out. So I'm into this house for $4,000. Sorry, I should probably write this down. I purchased, and these are real simple math. I cleaned it. So $14,000 all in. Then what I did is I sold it for $35,000 to a guy that wanted, he wanted to buy the house, and he didn't have a whole lot of money. I said $35,000. I got it all cleaned out. He gave me $10,000 down. There was a note for $25,000 that I did at 9.9%. Okay. And this is actually an interesting story once I figured out what this guy did. So for those of you that don't remember, I was $14,000 all in. I did $10,000 down. So I'm actually into this house for $4 grand. I need to look up an amortization calculator because I can't remember what that is. Amortization calculator. I look this up all the time. That's how I know where it is. So he's got a $25,000 purchase price. Let's say 0 down. 9.9%. And I did them on 15 years, I think is what I took. No, I did it on 5 years. Perfect. So his monthly payment to me for principal and interest is $529. For those of y'all keeping up, I've got $4,000 down, and I'm now making $529 a month. We're going to say this equals $4,000 divided by this month. So in 8 months, I'm at a dead break even. And I still own this house, and the guy's paying me off. Would I recommend doing owner finance right out the gate for anybody? No. You probably want to pay attention to that just for a minute before you really get into it. But I was working with Eric, so it was kind of nice. He did a ton of owner finance deals, so that's kind of how I learned to do it. So, but in less than 8 months, I'm at a dead break even, and I still get $529 for the next 4.5 years. And I was like, that's kind of a cool deal. I'm actually making a decent rate of return on this thing. What's really interesting is this guy was owing me $529 a month. He didn't even live in the house. He turned around and rented it to somebody else for $800 a month. Isn't that crazy? So he was making $300 a month. I was making $529 a month. And this, guys, is why try not to rent if you can, because there's probably a lot of people getting paid. So what is my rate of return on that? I think that's a fantastic question. So $4,000 divided by, no, sorry, $529 divided by 4,000. Oh, come on. I got a 13% rate of return. So I just beat the stock market by falling backwards into something. And that's real estate backed guaranteed. So I had a 13% rate of return on my very first deal ever. Now, what's interesting to me now is I wouldn't touch that deal with a 10-foot pole now, but I learned a lot by going through this. So for those of y'all that think it takes a ton of money, it really doesn't. I know now that with $14,000, I could buy a $150,000 house without batting an eye, but that was my first deal. So any questions, Zagla, Alex? Sorry, I've just kind of been rambling. I kind of want to eat my gigantic fruit cup now. Questions about what I'm talking about? Does all that make sense? Okay, well, I'll go ahead and talk with my mouth.
She had us on.
Oh,
no,
y'all were muted.
Go ahead with she had us on mute. Go ahead with your badass fruit cup there. No.
I'm gonna interrupt. Frutaria de Mission, La Mission, the one down by the Mission Drive-In Theater.
Oh yeah,
that's ridiculous. Oh yeah,
I'm
definitely gonna get my fiber for the day.
Yeah. No, we follow that absolutely, and that's great stuff. If we tell a story of how we got into real estate, I'm going to echo a lot of the stuff that you're saying. But no, makes sense perfectly.
Well, I want to know about your first deals and
oh gosh, my first deal actually fell through. But I think well, first of all, I think you're being generous with 12% return on the stock market. Don't you?
touche. Yeah. Well, I'm doing it just to show my point. Like if you talk to any financial advisor, that'll tend to be the number that they use. Now they can't guarantee 12%, but on average over the past 30 years and blah, 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 they use all these numbers. And I mean, you can shake out 12%. I mean, depending on how, I mean, you can use statistics to prove anything, right? So
even remotely, yeah.
Yeah. So
Well,
I mean, that's what they'll tell you, but
yeah,
my money is compounding too. Huh?
88% of statistics are made up.
I heard it was 90%, but yeah.
Yeah, that's close. My first deal, I don't even remember the street name. It was so long ago. I do remember. I don't know if Scott Hennicke's still around. We got me and my brother.
I sold him a house a couple of years ago.
Yeah,
like not even a year ago.
So he was going to give me a hard money loan on this house. And something, and it was a first deal, like I said. And me and my brother were going to get it. We're going to get into this stuff because I had always had an interest in real estate. And ironically, what you said about Rich Dad Poor Dad is what catapulted me into it. My background, hotel, restaurant management. I was general manager with Ruth Chris, wine director with Fleming's. I did some flips kind of as a hobby on the side. I was lucky if I made $500 a time, but I knew there was something there and I wanted to get out of the restaurant business. So I read that book and it really just shotgunned me. So we got this loan with him, something got delayed, blah, blah, blah. And we're going to a family reunion in Vegas. Finally, they hit it. We landed in Vegas, got a phone call. Hey, we're ready. Got to close, sign this stuff tomorrow. This is before the digital age. I guess we couldn't do this remotely for some reason. So we lost.
So you're on the strip. You're on the strip looking for a notary.
Yeah, exactly. I'm like, what do we do? We're out of town. Yeah. So we lost it because the timing was off on it. But whatever. God works in mysterious ways. I guess it wasn't meant to be.
Yeah.
But that was the first one, but it never happened.
Well, what was your first? Yeah, what was your first successful? Was it a flip? Like your first deal that you actually bought? Like it didn't even. I don't care if it's sexy or not. I don't know if it's the greatest deal in the history of the world or not. I don't care if you got money or lost money. But what was the first deal you actually finished?
So the first one was actually that I can remember. Now I'm an old dinosaur, so I got a couple buddies, and like I said, I was in the restaurant business. They wanted to flip a house. So the three of us got together, found a friend of mine who was a realtor and an interior designer. Sherry Longoria is her name. She's a great gal. Found us a house, acted as our realtor, found the house. We did all the work ourselves, the three of us. Took us forever and ever. We had a regular old conventional loan from a bank. And
20% down?
But yeah, we put, I don't know what, 3% down, whatever it was. I don't remember.
Oh, okay.
But Bank of America could have been the lender. I have no memory of it, but just a really amateur way of doing it. Got a bank loan, bought the house, paid all this stuff, blah, 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 fixed it up ourselves, sanded the doors, painted everything. Just three guys who knew nothing about construction. Sold it. I think we netted $500 between the three of us. So I made $150 or whatever it is. That was the first one. And that's what I started with flips. I've always been doing flips. I've been doing flips. The owner finance stuff, have a lot of experience with that, do a lot of that. But the flips is really what I like. And that's what I started with. That it's a lot more work, a lot more risk reward kind of thing.
Yeah. And I tell everybody, because, people approach me all the time. I want to flip a house. I want to flip. I'm like, no, you don't. Like flipping houses is the hardest. To me, it's the hardest real estate investing strategy by far. I mean, it is so tough. That it's so romanticized on HGTV and all that stuff, but man, it is tough. And like literally, I have a house that's flipped and it's supposed to close next week, and I just found out I need a new hot water heater, and it's in a historic district, and I've got to get my final inspection. So it's always something. So those are always kind of tricky. But Zagla, what's your first deal?
I'm still fairly new, so I started with wholesaling. Obviously, we have 2 flips right now. And I agree, they're not the easiest. We bought them almost exactly a year ago, last year. Luckily, we got them low enough, but definitely been like the time lost, you'll never get that back. But But yeah, it's coming along. Hopefully, be coming onto the market here soon. And then another
So
one.
tell us about
What?
no, tell us about one of your first wholesale deals. How'd you find it? How much money did you spend? How did you do it? Like, talk to us.
It was actually a
It's
while
story
ago.
time, and I've got my.
I had a mentor, so it was one on his deal. I honestly don't even remember the address or anything like that. I was just more of in charge of trying to find buyers. So I don't know. I was just lucky that I had somebody to help walk me through how to call people, talk to people, contract the deals, trying to make sense of how it works with my license, because that was a hard part for me to wrap my head around. I was like, well, if this property is represented by an agent, like how do they get paid type situation. But I don't really have any stories as far as like wholesale. We didn't really spend any of our dollars or any of our money. Every time we contracted something, it was like for $10 or so. And even then, we already had a buyer lined up, so we never had to fish up most of our money at all, actually.
Well, I think a good point.
Yeah, and
With the wholesaling as an investor, or as an agent, because I'm a new agent. I've been an agent for what, 6 months, 7 months, I don't even know. And I regret it mostly every day because I've been an investor for 15 years and I don't have to worry about any of this stuff. So now I'm like, why did I do this? Why do I keep going with it? I know there's going to be a benefit in the back road, but it is a lot different when you have to worry about all the licensing nonsense.
The liabilities.
And yeah, all the stuff that goes along with that.
yeah, no, excuse me. Yeah, by the way, I've been fighting a nasal infection, so apologize. But yeah, no, you're right. There is what I like about holding my license. Sorry, just to counter that, to play the other side of the fence, is it allows me to play both sides of the market.
Mm-hmm.
So when it's a seller's market like it is right now, I can represent sellers and make a killing as a realtor. Like I got to be honest with you, I don't really care to be a realtor. I mean, I've been in sales a very long time. I don't know if I'm just burnt out on selling and doing all that stuff. And I always joke that I'm like the world's worst realtor because I don't go around, oh my God, look at this. Can you just imagine? Oh, and if we did this, I don't do that. I just like, I'm like, I can tell you what's wrong with the house. You want to know if there's plumbing problems? I can sniff that out like that. But other than that, I'm not really, I guess, maybe I watch too much HDTV. But I like having my license because I can play both sides of the market, right? So when it's a buyer's market and there's a ton of deals out there, then I can go in there and invest because I know how to do that. When it's a seller's market and it's hard to find a deal, fine, I'll just put my realtor hat on and go about my business. Because right now, I'm pretty sure y'all are knowing this, especially on the wholesaling side, it is tough to find anything. I mean, it is just so competitive out there. But what I did want to touch on, so Alex, for those of y'all watching this at a later time, Alex started off with a flip. Made $500, right? That's a lot of stress, a lot of headache, a lot of sanding, a lot of painting to make $500. But it is important to get your feet wet, right? I don't think the first deal is about making a ton of money. I think the first deal is just getting outside of your head, like, oh, I can own 2 houses at one time or something like that. Plus just the lessons you learn. But it's hard to do a flip first time out the gate, right? Because you want everything perfect. It takes too long. Money gets beat up, all that kind of stuff. Zagala on the other side did wholesaling. And the one thing that's similar about both of those is, quite frankly, it's a job, right? You're in a rat race. Once you're done with that flip and you've made your $500, if you want another $500, you got to go do another one, right? Or hopefully you make a little bit more. Same thing with wholesaling, right? If the wheel's not moving, we're not making any money. And which I like starting off in wholesaling because it's kind of the least risky when it comes to your own personal finances. You're not having to put $1 million in there. We're not having to do all that kind of stuff. Eric wants in on this. He just got here. So I guess I'll let Eric in. So, but you're not having to invest a whole lot of money into it to get into the wholesaling side of things. But the same thing is going on, that it's still a job. Yeah. So if I don't like flipping houses, like I said earlier, then why do I do it? Well, sometimes you just need to raise capital. It's a great way to raise capital. If I start off with $10,000 and I do a flip, right, and I make 20, now I got 30 grand, right? And I've made more money. So it's a great way to raise capital. That's why a lot of people do that, especially in the wholesaling world, is we're going out there to raise capital. So hopefully that's why you're doing it. Because I know, and like Zagala said, she started off wholesaling and now she's gone into some flips. And I'm sure, do you hold any of them, Zagala?
Yeah, they're both ours. I don't think we'll be doing another flip after this though. I think we for sure want to get creative with either owner finance, rental. I would like to stay away from rentals just because I don't want to be a landlord, but I mean I might have to be able to learn that part, that aspect. But yeah.
Well, I think an important thing that I tell everybody is if you want to get into rentals, don't be a landlord, right? Um, like I own rental properties, and it's very important to me that, I know this sounds crazy, nobody that lives in one of my houses knows who I am. Period. They don't. They know who my property manager is, and she's 6 feet up the rear end, and she, you know what I mean? And they got whatever. We'll take care of you. They don't know who I am. I don't get phone calls. I just don't. It's all outsourced. Now, do I pay for that? Sure. You know what I mean? It's a thing I pay for, but it's worth it to me. Like to me, I'd rather have a rental property that's cash flowing me $50 a month versus, oh, this one's cash flowing me $200 a month, but I get phone calls every other day. And now I'd rather pay somebody else. You know what I mean? Like, here, you do it. But
I absolutely agree with that. Well, I do the flips to fuel the cash to get the more owner finance stuff. Now, I just went through an ugly divorce, so I basically lost everything I had, and we had to separate all that crap. So I got to rebuild now. But I will still flip to get the down payments for the owner finance long term, because to me, it's a more sophisticated rental strategy. You don't have to mess with this stuff. No one calls you for a clogged toilet. No one calls Bank of America for a clogged toilet. Yeah, it's your house to deal with it. But yeah, that's the passive income that I'm looking for. Someday I'll be sitting on a beach collecting mailbox money, and I'll be good.
That's what we
But see, that to me, so when we talked about this whole thing, it's like, why invest in real estate? That's the game, right? I think Alex hit the nail on the head. The reason why I keep trying to get more cash flow opportunities, owner finance, rentals, as opposed to flips, is, like I said, that is something that'll stick forever. And if I train my team and I get everything going well enough, I never have to screw with it, right? I just get, like he said, that mailbox money. It's the long-term thought process. So that duplex that I was talking about just a minute ago, I actually bought that for one of my daughters. That's going to be her college fund. So literally, instead of investing in a 529 and getting a 10% rate of return, and if I use an age-based option, it's going to be diminishing until it's a pure cash account about age 17. I would honestly, in a 529 plan, sure, it's tax-free if you use it for educational expenses. I mean, I can go off on that tangent, but I think my average rate of return would end up netting me like 6%, maybe. You know what I mean? Or I can buy her a duplex that I know is going to increase in value. So over the next 15 years, it's worth 225 right now. Let's say in the next 15 years, it's worth, let's just say 300. That sounds fair to everybody, right? $300,000. I've got the mortgage paid about halfway off, and I've been making $1,000 a month the entire time. Yeah. I'm gonna have $200,000 in equity. I'll just sell the property and go, here you go, honey. Here's 200 grand. Go to school. You know what I mean? And that's how I've shifted all of my thought process. It's like, if I want something, how do I get it in real estate? And that's the old joke, right? You want a Ferrari? Go buy a rental property. Go buy 2 of them. You get 2 rental properties that net you $1,000 a month, and go buy your Ferrari. And then
Okay, so let me keep you going, Colin. How about the difference, pros and cons between rental and owner finance?
So,
well,
I can't.
That is for like the rest of everyone watching this later.
No. That's a great question. So there are definitely pros and cons on both sides of it, right? Pros for rental are tax advantages, big time. You can depreciate your rental. So that, right, of course, all the stuff that goes in and out of the rental. The tax advantages are way stronger on the rental than they are on an owner finance. Most people don't realize that if you helped me out a lot this life. Did I tell you I got a tax return because of you, Alex? Thank you, love you. I actually got a tax
I know you didn't tell me this. No.
I haven't gotten a tax return in years, and they're like, "Oh, we're gonna give you $5,000 back." I'm like, "Shut up!" Never.
Well, you're welcome, I guess.
Let me tell you what Alex did. Let me tell you something. So on the owner finance end of things, very simple owner finance. I buy a house for 50 grand. I put 25 into it, and I owner finance it for 100. Okay, so I have $75,000 invested, 100 grand. When I sell that house for $100,000 on a note, the IRS assumes that I've already capitalized on that $25,000. So I need to pay taxes on $25,000. Does that make sense? Okay, so that sucks. I didn't get $25,000. So if my tax rate is 20%, right, then I owe $5,000 to the IRS on that deal when I didn't make anything, which is kind of frustrating. Okay, plus you got to pay taxes as a help me out here, because you're going to pay income taxes on the interest you receive, and so much of that interest at the beginning, so much of that amortization table is interest at the beginning. So as those notes are newer, they tax the crap out of you, and it hurts, to be quite honest with you. And so I owe $5,000 in taxes on a house that I just paid $75,000 to get into, right? And yes, I'm going to get my money out. I'm not going to get into all that, but that kind of hurt. Now, the way Alex actually helped me is I sold Alex 2 of my notes. I don't know what you did with them. I don't really care, but I sold Alex 2 notes and I discounted them to him. So instead of selling it to Alex for $100,000, I sold it to Alex for 18 or 85, let's say. Or I don't remember what the numbers were. But so now I'd already paid taxes on the 25, and then I just told the IRS I took a loss of 15, so I get that money back because I sold those 2 notes to you at a discount, and then I make my quarterly payments and all that stuff too. So it was kind of just, it worked out. But
by selling it at a discount, did you still make a profit?
I did. I still netted a profit. So if you remember, I was into it for 75, and I sold it for 85. So I still made a small profit, but I'd already paid taxes on 25. Am I making sense here?
Yeah.
Yes.
No, it's kind of going back and forth. Okay. So one of the big advantages for rentals over owner finances is taxation. Taxes are the biggest expense everybody pays every year. So you want to avoid that as much as possible. The second thing is what I like advantage for rentals is you still control the property 100%. It's a lot easier to sell a property than it is to sell a note. You can sell notes. There's available options to it. It's a little bit trickier, I think, than just putting something in MLS. People tend to understand houses better. You have a bigger market. It's easier to sell that. Plus you control the property. You can refinance at any time. You can do all those kind of things, which I really appreciate, that kind of flexibility with it. Downsides is what Alex said. Owner finance definitely wins with capital expenditures, which is really nice. Yeah, I don't care if your roof goes to crap. It's not my problem. I don't care if your toilet backs up. I don't care if anything like that. When you own a rental property, if the roof caves in, that's a big problem. So there's no capital expenditures, which is a big thing on the owner finance, which is really nice. And then the other thing is with that comes the lack of control. So you definitely get a higher rate of return. Your return tends to be a lot higher with an owner finance deal, but it's depreciating, right? Once they ever sell the house or whatever it is, it's gone and you've lost that property. So the name of the game with wealth creation is to be able to hold as much as you can. If everybody that you have owner finance deals decides to sell, you're gonna have this big influx of cash, but your mailbox money stops. So it's just kind of the game. So yeah, pros and cons. I mean, I have both. I like both of them. I mean, I think it's important to diversify your portfolio. I learned that in investor school.
Yes, diversify in real estate or precious metals.
Diversify in real estate.
I like, I like the owner finance liquidity because if you do have a note, you're going to pinch, you need money fast, you can sell a note off quicker than you can sometimes sell a house with a renter in it, but maybe that's just an opinion. So anyway,
it definitely is.
I'm still buying notes. Everyone sell me notes. Buy me notes.
I agree. You can sell a note faster than you can sell a house with a renter in it. The speed is quicker, but your market's smaller, right? And there's few people buying notes and there are buying houses. So that's a correct statement.
Well, everyone sell me your notes. Get them on.
But yeah, I wish I could stream this in the rooftop. I love talking about investing. I mean, it's a great thing to do, to go out there and go do all this stuff. But when it's crazy markets like this, I mean, we just got to be out there selling houses. Put your realtor hat on and go sell them. Mm-hmm. Wait till you find the deals.
Yeah.
But I think, one of my favorite, I don't know if any of y'all are doing this lately, but I went down to the auction yesterday just to kind of feel it out because we haven't had auctions in forever. Yeah. And I knew they'd been happening and it was slow. Definitely not as many people as I've seen at auctions in the past, not as many houses, but I'd love y'all's opinion on this. What I'm thinking about doing is going down to the auction and buying a couple houses and just throwing them in the MLS, just wholesaling them that way.
If I had the capital, I'd do that too.
That's an idea. Now, I had been going down there during this COVID thing, so yesterday looked like a madhouse to me compared to what it has been. Also, I thought.
What time did you get there?
Huh?
What time did you get there?
I don't know when it was like 9:30 or 10, something like that. It
Oh,
looked like
I was there right at 10.
There was a lot of people down there, it looked like, to me anyway. Well, look, I'm comparing it to when COVID was going on, and there's like 12 people. So
yeah, it wasn't as bad as it was in 2019. Let's say that.
Yeah, it was different, but you know, there was a lot of people out there. It seemed like the houses were going for a lot more than what I would pay for them, and that's just typical auction, in my opinion. But yeah, it was cool to see that the action is coming back. Inventory.
Yeah, the action's coming.
Yeah.
So does that mean people obviously are being foreclosed on now for sure?
The foreclosures have opened. Yeah. It's starting to do the processes. Yeah.
So we got to get.
Yeah, it's starting to come back.
Yeah.
Yeah. For the wholesaling side of things, I know I'm starting to have my team focus looking more at the foreclosure list again. Right. Got to get back out there. But I wanted to touch on something Zagala said. She goes, if I had the capital, I would go down there and do that. Just to clarify what that means, capital means money. Do I have cash? Do I have cash in my hand? Because when you go to an auction and if you say, I'll buy that house for 50 grand, you don't get to go down to the bank and work it all out. You better hand over 50 grand, right? Like you have 5 minutes. Here's 50 grand. And don't think about robbing the place. Nobody walks around with suitcases full of money. They usually have cashier checks or something. But you need to have cash on hand just to clear that up for everybody.
Yeah, that's a good one.
So if that's what you're going to be doing, would you be willing to fund that for other people? Maybe be
well, interesting you say that. I actually have a backer on this thing. So I've got enough to buy maybe one house in cash right now because I don't know if y'all have seen my nightmare of a fourplex that I'm working on right now. And my project manager just pinged me going, what's up with the water heater? Which makes me sad. So I've got a lot of money out right now. But I've got a guy that's got a bunch of money that wants to go down there with me and do all this stuff. And I said, you know what? I'll do the homework. You bring the checkbook. So
that's awesome.
I'd love to. I've got, like I said, one, maybe two, depending on what we're doing, but we'll see.
Okay.
I'll figure something out. I'll get you some stuff like Dispo for me or something. You got a bunch of them California guys on your list?
A few of them, yeah, and a few hedge funds.
I like those guys. More money than sense. So, oh, dude, never mind. I'm not gonna get into the whole political thing, but cool, guys. Anything else?
No.
Want to talk about, discuss?
It was a great chat. Yeah. Hopefully, some the other people that watch us on the recording later will get something out of it.
Yeah, for sure. What do y'all think about me starting like a personal YouTube channel where I literally walk through every single solitary deal? I mean, to the point of like a college lecture.
It sounds like a lot of work.
Oh, I love hearing myself talk.
Well, then go for it, bro. Dude, I'll watch them. I think it's a great idea. It's something that I would never do.
Well, you know, one of the reasons why is because whenever I'm talking real estate investing to people, and y'all know this, you know, every deal is so specific. That's why I like doing what I do, is because there is a problem solving aspect to it. There's just a lot going on with how all these deals are put together. So when everybody asks, well, how'd you make money on this deal? I'm like, you don't even want to know. I had to go sell 3 chickens to the witch doctor over there. I had to put in a new hot water heater. You know how that goes. It's always just something like wild that has to make this deal work. And I'm one of those guys, like, I want to know literally what steps, because I understand that steps A, B, C, D, E may not be the same for me and you, but if I at least know what your thought process was along the way and what you were trying to achieve, I think it becomes a really interesting story, personally. But
no,
I'm gonna have to get like a whiteboard.
Yeah, no, I love the idea. I hope you do it. I champion it. If you need help doing it, I'll help you, because I've flipped a lot of houses, dozens and dozens and dozens, and everyone is unique. And that's why I like it, because everyone has every one of them has a problem. There's always something that gets screwed up. So I don't know why. Maybe I'm sick, but I enjoy that aspect of it. So I actually like doing it. I like the solving aspect of it. So yeah, I'm with you 100%. I think it's great.
Yeah, I love the problem solving aspect. That's my favorite thing about it, right? Because you never know what you're gonna get. And that makes it fun for me.
No, I think
So-
it'd be good if you did do those videos and went through step by step, because it seems like a lot of the videos that you see on YouTube don't really explain the problems that you go through. They kind of just tell you the big picture, like I put down this much and made this much return and repaired this much, and that's it. But they don't really go into depth of like the hurdles that they had to go through to get that done. So that'd be good for people who
And
are trying to learn.
that's the whole thing. Is people get analysis paralysis, in my opinion, about doing anything about it, because they're trying to analyze it, and everything you ever see on YouTube or books or anything like that, it's so conceptual, and it's like, well, this is how it works, and it never freaking works that way. I mean, ever. Like, yes, it kind of stays on that general guideline, but it's never ever that smooth. And I don't know, maybe it's just for me. Maybe we'll see. I'll do it on my own personal Facebook page that way, or YouTube page or something that way. Eric didn't get mad at me for going, why don't you tell him you lost money on that deal? Which I think I don't think he'd be mad. I think he'd actually just laugh at me if he knew how much money I lost on that one. Oh God, he'd laugh at me. But
Well,
what are you gonna do?
I think personally that you'd get more hits on the one where you lost money than the ones where you made money, to be honest with you.
Yeah.
Because doing all the stuff that I did in the beginning, I've lost money. The worst one, I lost about 100 grand on a flip one time. Now, those I've learned the most from. And the actual doing is how I learn it. So all those painstaking processes where you lost money, you screwed this up, you made a mistake, oh my gosh, you got ripped off, a contractor ran off with your money, whatever happened, you'd get more hits on the ones where you failed than the ones where you succeeded.
Well, and it's so funny. I'll never forget when my granddad told me not to pee on an electric fence. And I was with one of my idiot buddies, and he didn't believe him. And I'll let y'all do the science on that. And he didn't believe him, and he tried it out. My granddad I thought he was going to die laughing at that point, because my friend didn't listen, but I did listen, which is very, very unusual for me. But I decided to listen that day. And like you said, when you see somebody else losing money, it's like, hey, look, that's what he did. That's what happened. I need to make sure I head that off at the pass. So yeah, I think I'm going to do it. So go enjoy the rest of your Wednesday. We got a short work week this week. And I'll see you guys around.